Hello, I'm Scott Campbell, company director of Sloth games. I'm also the composer for the new game that we're working on, Heldritch Rush. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how I create the music for the game. It's also worth mentioning that this has a 90 BPM and has 4 beats per bar. Right now I'm just starting off with a simple bass line, just essentially to get things moving. I'm chopping it down a little bit so it sounds just a little bit punchier. Next, I'm adding a little note that's an octave higher, just to make things a little bit more interesting, and then I'm going to bring the entire thing down an octave. What I really want to do next is find another synthesizer that can back up the first bass line, just bringing out the distortion a little bit. So as you can see, I'm playing through Analog Lab just to have a look at the one I like, and I like EP7070. Next, I bring in a couple of drum samples that I have saved from previous projects. This just helps me make some better decisions going forward with a beat in the background. I then bring in a couple more drum samples just to really drive the bass on those drums. I want them to be somewhat at the forefront of the whole soundtrack. Currently we're missing hi-hats, so I bring in this VST sample so that we can start to put them in. Nice closed hi-hats in the background that keeps the rhythm chugging along too. I then turn down their velocity so they get hit with less force. The next thing I want to do is add a reverb to the hi-hats just to give them a little bit more of an airier feeling. In the last few years, East-West Spaces 2 has been an absolute godsend for me, and I use it in almost everything that I do. At the beginning of the next set of bars, I put a crash cymbal in, just to tie everything together with the drums. I couldn't help myself here, but I wanted to do a little rundown with some toms to really bring in that next set of 4 bars that were to come. With the drum and bass ready, the next thing I wanted to put in was a riser, so I've done 2 variations of risers, which just brings up the intensity of the track, which you'll be able to hear now. I really loved the sounds, but my concern was that it wasn't going to be heard very well going forward, so this is why I added a second one in to support it. One of the best pieces of free kit that you can get is Vital. This is really good for making these industrialized distorted sounds that we need for the song. I'm going to duplicate this and use another sample from Vital. This one is a lot more intense, a lot heavier, and this is where the metal begins to come in. With all that out of the way, it's time to bring in the lead synth. I didn't want anything complicated or anything quick moving, I just wanted a nice, simple melody, 3 different notes. To support the lead, I then build a harmonized sound that plays a little bit more behind it. It's to give a sort of spookier sound to it. Then on the second time around with it, I make a slight variation just to add something extra. All that's missing now is just adding the guitar. So I got Shreddage recently, and it's great because it has this early noughties sort of sound. Here I'm just spending a little bit of time trying to figure out a guitar riff that I'm happy with and one that matches with the bass line, but it's still just a little bit different and unique, and you can hear it completely while the music is being played. I'm then going to drop the velocity of the bottom notes. I'm then going to duplicate it over to the next two bars, and we're going to drop it down to an A minor. I want to then lengthen the top notes just so that they play a little bit longer and they're more audible when getting played back. This is where the real transformation will next happen, where I've got the Revolver amp and I'm using one of the PV King in a Room setups. The last thing I'm going to do is double up the bottom notes so that the chugging happens a lot quicker. I've done a lot of tweaking behind the scenes, but this is the final result of Into the Lab from Heldritch Rush.